Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well on this fine July day. I've got a terrifying upload of terrifying encounters. And before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is directly under this video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help. And you know what, guys? It truly matters. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. My experience was 20 years ago. There was an old abandoned piece of land that used to be a farm well before I was born. It was completely fenced off with a 6-foot concrete wall all the way around it. It was huge and had a few small buildings that were derelict and falling down, and an old disused train track that used to run almost straight through the middle of it. A group of my friends and myself used to go there and hang out during the day. We were about 16 at the time, and there was this one building in almost perfect condition. It looked like a little bomb shelter, but not like any I've seen before. It was fully concrete, roughly 15 feet by 10 feet wide, and about 12 feet high with a door at each end. But the doors were angled perfectly, so there was no light. Honestly, it was pitch dark inside. We had been going there for about a year. Anyway, one day we were all there and we heard this noise. Not quite a howl, but not quite a scream, but something in between. We all looked at each other. WTF? Then one of them says, "Look over there by the trees." There were trees running alongside the boundary of one side. We all looked, and what we saw was something that must have been at least 9 feet tall, black, shaggy fur completely covering its body. And it was standing upright on 2 legs, but it was too far away to see any facial features. The creature was just staring at us and obviously freaking us out, even more when I realized that we had never seen any animals in this place before. Not a rabbit, no birds, nothing. Anyway, we all got our courage and decided that night we are going to go back with some torches and a camera. Stupid teenage thing to do. We get over the wall and it's completely silent. We go for a walk over to where we saw it, but we cannot find anything other than a few broken branches. We spend about an hour there looking but not seeing anything. When we finally get the building that's like a bomb shelter, straight away we hear a growling noise, like a dog but much deeper. I've got the camera, so I stood in front, and I wanted to get this thing on video, so I walked closer. And that's when it stepped out in front of us. It was a huge dog-like creature, completely black with reddish glowing eyes, growling so loud it was deafening. We bolted as fast as we could. I never looked back. So I don't have a clue if this thing was chasing us or not, but I've never ran so fast in my life. We got over the wall and all ran home. I finally make it home, and I check the camera. I know for a fact I had this thing on video. The video plays completely normal right up to the point the growling started, and the camera literally just shut off. I know for a fact it was recording because I wanted to get this on camera really bad. Anyway, a couple years later they started building on the site. A couple hotels and some other things, but apparently workers kept walking off site at night because someone or something was sneaking around and it was scaring them all off. Today's second encounter. Hey y'all, I've got an experience I'd like to share with you, with something that I believe was a dogman. Summer days were longer back in the day, warmer even. It was around 10 p.m. It was still light out, but not brighter than dusk. One of my friends was called inside by his dad and yelled at for missing curfew. I was yelled at to go home. Anyway, I'm walking down their driveway across the road to my house, and the hair on the back of my neck stands straight up as I look around. I saw something, dark as night, crouched down, just glaring with these reddish orange eyes. I didn't know what it was at first, so I walked towards it, curious, and that's when it stood up. I remember having a tear in my eye. I don't know why, but the tears were distorting what I was seeing. It got down on all fours and started running at me. I bolted to my dad's truck, which was in our driveway. It was an old square body Chevy with rotten out floors. I jumped in through the passenger side door and, as quickly as I could, slammed the door right behind me. I lied down on the seat looking at the floorboard of the truck, and I could hear the powerful nose just pushing the floor up, sniffing around. I looked out the window, and just as the door trim meets the bottom half of the window, there was this hairy, reddish orange eye staring at me. I remember the weakness I felt and felt like I couldn't stay awake anymore, so I put my face down in the seat. I got woken up by my mom screaming my name. My brother looks in the truck and laughs like a chipmunk laugh. There he is, he says. I got my ass spanked without question as to why I was hiding out in my dad's truck. I never gave an explanation for it, and by then I just thought already, I got my ass whipped. No need to justify another. I feel as if I had been haunted by this creature since then. I've lived in Luther, not far from a cabin that was attacked by such a creature. It was in that Steve Cook, the legend Dogman song. There were claw marks, teeth marks all along the door, and this window really high up on this cabin. Could have been a bear, could have been a dog. The creature had to have stood at least 7.5 feet tall. My dad has been a cold case in Manistee County for 20-something years. I carry locked and loaded every day. Today's third encounter. I was a skeptic of the unknown until June of 1984. I was 25 years old at the time and had recently achieved a promotion. I took my ex-girlfriend Ellen to Sequoia National Forest as a means of celebrating. We lived just outside of San Fran, so the proximity made it seem the perfect place for the weekend getaway. Neither of us had visited this area, and since Ellen spoke of it regularly, I wanted to help her check it off her bucket list. Of course, I had no clue regarding the danger we'd face. I still have trouble accepting that it happened. Since we had planned to get up early and hike the following day, I booked a small cabin conveniently located near one of the recommended trailheads. It was cold and rainy in the early morning, which seemed to deter the excessive number of tourists that I had expected. With cups of warm coffee in hand, we began our walk towards an unforeseen danger. I first noticed the noise somewhere around 10 minutes into our walk. I thought I heard a couple of grunts every so often, but the light rain atop from our umbrella seemed to interfere with it every time. Because of that, I initially kept disregarding it as my imagination. You'll catch all sorts of strange noises when you're out in the woods, especially if you are not a frequent visitor. Although I was a tad suspicious that we might cross paths with a wandering bear, I knew they weren't known for being too aggressive in this area. Supposedly, there are no grizzlies in Northern California. Still, I was slightly troubled that we may encounter a mother bear and her cubs. I think we can all agree that's never a good situation to find yourself in, no matter how small the mama bear is. Anyhow, I distinctly remember how Ellen and I were having a pleasant conversation about our Christmas plans before we simultaneously came to an abrupt halt. "What was that?" she said, having heard a grunt for the first time. This time it sounded much closer, leaving no room to deny that there was some sort of large animal among us. By that point, I was convinced that we were near a mother bear and her cubs, but I didn't want to vocalize that possibility because I worried it would cause Ellen to panic. While trying to ascertain which direction the noise came from, the ghoul like creature stepped out onto the trail, roughly 25 to 30 feet in front of us. The sight of this thing took our breath away. It made me freeze up. I can't think of another instant where I was so unsure of what to do. If we ran away from this beast, it would likely perceive us as prey, but if I ran towards it, or just stayed still, it might see that as a challenge. Something about the look in those eyes suggested this creature was more than intelligent. It was as if it was pondering what to do with us. Although I was terrified for our lives, I remember desperately longing for an explanation of what this creature was. I remember thinking how I would have traded anything to be standing next to a forest ranger who was familiar with whatever these creatures were. I craved someone with the necessary knowledge to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. For whatever reason, at that moment, it just wasn't enough to have a girlfriend or a friend there with me to confirm such a thing. It was slightly hunched over, but I could tell that it would have surpassed 6.5 feet had it been standing fully erect. If you are able to take a German Shepherd or maybe even a coyote, give it all black fur, and combine its DNA with that of a human, you'd get a pretty accurate vision of this creature. The only significant difference was the legs. They didn't seem to have the same joint placement as a human, nor was it like a dog. Honestly, I'm not even sure how to describe that aspect. But keep in mind, this evaluation occurred in the heat of the moment. However, these characteristics are what Ellen and I agreed upon in our discussion after. I'm not sure how much time passed after first laying eyes on these two-legged beasts, but I found myself shielding Ellen as it looked like it was preparing to charge us. The increased hunch in its posture suggested to me that it was going to pounce any second now. Somehow, it was like we both knew it was pointless to try to outrun this thing. But it was just after the creature lowered its torso until it nearly touched the ground that I heard Ellen's footsteps flee in the opposite direction. That prompted the creature to unleash what I can only describe as a hiss, but I only listened for a brief moment before I turned to find my partner. It was the last thing I wanted to do, but I sprinted in her direction, intent on shielding her from an attack, which I was damn near positive was seconds away. But with every moment that passed, I was surprised not to experience the sensation of claws and jaws penetrating my flesh. My adrenaline surged more than ever while I stayed focused on my lover, fully prepared to sacrifice myself so she'd have a chance to escape. I think it's remarkable how brave humans become in the heat of the moment. I can't emphasize enough how my fear was solely placed upon Ellen's safety, momentarily rendering my own condition irrelevant. I'm sure most people who have been in a dire situation with a loved one would agree with that sentiment. I've never had children, but I can only imagine how powerful that instinct to protect would be if you encountered a vicious predator while with your 4-year-old. I don't doubt many children in this country have been forced to witness a parent get torn apart by a dogman. There's just no way around the unfortunateness and unsettling reality. I don't mean any disrespect by saying this, but I remember wishing that Ellen could run faster, even though I assumed it would only slightly delay my demise. I remember desperately hoping that I would be enough of a meal once caught by this predator. Then it wasn't long before the two of us came to a screeching halt. It was maybe about 40 yards ahead of us that we saw a couple of young men backpacking away from yet another bipedal dog-like creature. At first, common sense made me assume that this was a different creature than what we had just encountered. But when I turned around, the coast was clear. There was nothing in sight chasing us. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what happened and how. How did this creature make its way around us undetected on its way to the pair of young hikers? I just feel like the surrounding woods weren't thick enough for neither Ellen nor I to notice the predator out of our peripheral. After a few seconds of gathering, we were no longer getting trailed. I picked up the first hefty tree branch I could and charged after the scene up ahead. I think I must have noticed how the predator already seemed slightly hesitant to attack the athletic looking guys. Therefore, I needed to take advantage of the opportunity by adding a third ally. It felt like it might be the only chance to ward this creature off. I would never have encouraged it, but I am now grateful that Ellen joined me in the act. The gathering of 4 people proved effective in convincing the creature to look for prey elsewhere. We got lucky because there was no question that this creature was more than capable of taking us all out. Not a single one of us had even a pocket knife on us. Once all 4 of us felt confident that the creature was long gone, the young men introduced themselves. We were all stunned out of our wits. After the 4 of us made it to the trailhead, they volunteered to escort us back to the rental cabin, which was incredibly kind of them. They came inside for some coffee, and the 4 of us spent maybe 30 minutes or so discussing the peculiar encounter. I think they would have snuck around for longer, but they had somewhere they needed to be. We gave them a ride to their car since it was parked a good distance away. I wish I still had their contact info, as it would have been super nice to get in touch with those guys. There is no question in my mind that what we encountered that day was a dogman, a werewolf, or possibly even a couple of them, but still so badly desire an explanation for these things and what they are. All these years later, I don't feel any closer to getting to the bottom of it. All right, guys, tonight I have a mid video kind of treat. I'm bringing DJ into the video halfway through. DJ, how are you, buddy?
I'm pretty good, Jeff. Thanks for asking.
Well, it's always a pleasure hearing from you. I appreciate you always reaching out to me and keeping me in the loop of what's going on. Um, the other night, you had some crazy stuff going on. No sightings or anything. I'll just let you fill everyone in, and then I'll ask you some questions and stuff if you don't mind, buddy.
All right, sure. About 4 nights back, from about 10 to 12 to a little after 3 a.m. in the early morning, there was all kinds of racket up in the mountains as far as howling, and I was screaming, screeching is what I call it. I guess it was Dogman's with Cody or chasing them or running together or whatever, but it went off and on for over 3 hours.
Right.
And we could hear it for miles and miles. You could hear it going way out in the distance. I mean, some parts you'd have to stop breathing to actually hear it. It was so far. And then it would get close again, it'd get closer, then it'd just keep going way out of distance. And this stuff went on for, like I said, it's over 3 hours. I don't know what was going on, or if they were just encircling something, trying out to new territory, chasing something, or I don't know what was going on. But I don't know what prompted them to do that. I've never heard nothing like that. It wasn't solid, like 3 hours of solid nonstop. It'd go for a while and it'd stop. It'd go for a while and it'd stop, just on and on and on and on. And I've never heard that far away, that kind of tone, and just go so far out of hearing distance where you have to breathe to hear it, and then come back. It sounded like it would be within 300 yards of the home, and then way back out in the distance. And it just, from what I understand, my wife's relatives, it's about 10-minute drive from here. They live way up on a big mountain, and they even heard it up there. And they're about, I think about 5.5, 6 miles from where we are at. And they even heard it up there. And matter of fact, it woke her uncle up early in the morning. That's how bad it was, because they sleep with the window open at the head of her bed in her home, and it even woke him up at about 1:30. He said, and he's starting to come around a little bit, I think, because he said he could hear the coyote. He said coyote language is fluent, but the squealing is what he called it. He said, I don't know what that was. And well, I looked at him and I said, well, I told you. And he said they might be something to what you're saying. So I think he's starting to come around. He knew that wasn't no normal coyote hollering like that. So I think he's starting to come to realize there's more in the world than what you see and what you can, put your hands on. So I think he's really starting to accept that there's some things out there that he don't understand, but yet he knows is alive. So hopefully, with any hope that he'll get smart about it. I know his wife done got on him about putting up dusk till dawn lights, and once they light out back, or if it sees anything, it comes on.
Yeah.
So she's scared stiff, and I think he's starting to realize that there might be something to it. What I've been telling him forever, or else his wife wouldn't have seen these things and heard these things. Now he heard it. If it shakes him, then he's starting to see. I don't know why they chose this part of the country to do it in. Maybe there's so much land mass that's untouched by man, and abandoned places and old mines and just woods and shacks, shanties, barns, caves, you name it. But
Yeah.
I've never heard nothing like that the other night.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even up to your wife's family, hearing it up that way is outrageous. But, I really honestly think maybe a pack moving in, small pack, large pack. I've had a couple of people email me talking about these large packs moving through Virginia, and you never do know, really.
That's exactly right. You don't.
And I think that's the scariest part. Is, I mean, yeah, you can live, knowing these creatures are out there. You don't have to accept it or whatever. But with us, we have,
Exactly.
But the second they're within your vicinity, in your home turf, that's when things get, real dodgy. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, according to Victor, when he was working for the government, Obama administration released so many thousand of these things, and I just don't understand that, especially the troubled ones. I mean, why not euthanize it? I mean, I understand everything has a right to life, and I admit it, but you know, all the attacks on people that has been going, 90% of them is Dogman. I mean, why in the world he dumped in on the American people? It don't matter how far you take it out to where there's no man land. You heard, I mean, it's just like he says, they're nomadic. They just travel and travel and travel. I would have euthanized them. I mean, I really would. At least, the harmful ones of the worst ones of the numbers of them. But 20 some thousand just dumping, and not to mention the wild ones that are out there. It's like taking an old bomb found in a minefield and hooking up a live wire to it with a remote and revamping it. I mean, they're smart enough from the ones who are in captivity to actually communicate with the ones from the wild now. And you can imagine the information that they learned and what they brought back. So they've took a dull knife and made it sharp, so to speak. And like you said, the packs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger because they can all live in a commune now and communicate from what they learned from in the captivity. I mean, I don't know what the administration was thinking doing that.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely and that's why we have these kind of protocols in place. With this Dulce stuff that I've been talking about. These NWO or secret government, whatever you want to call it, just really surpasses congressional hearings, and that's set up for a reason.
Right.
To hide that kind of information I can understand hiding it from the civilian populace, but to the government itself, the running body of government, you can't hide something like that and expect
No,
it to, you know, it just makes no sense. These things lurking around is, I mean, Virginia had always, your neck of the woods has always had, some real crazy stuff going on, but for some reason, the last couple of years has been real hot, and I'd like to know what is going on. What's making them gravitate towards Buchanan, Tazewell, Smith,
Mercer
Mercer
County.
County, West Virginia. Yeah, I mean, that area is just hot.
So
And
honestly, Jeff, it makes you wonder if it, it's it's a bull crap theory. But what if they have like an underground bunker around here somewhere?
well, that's
That's
not
a
really a bullcrap theory because Victor said they come to and fro Virginia, so
but if
maybe
it's like a
they're,
midway point, if
yeah,
they
yeah,
stop and maybe they can rest and be checked out by staff or what have you. If they have any infections or are sick or have any wounds or they're young or they want their young checked out, who knows? But
yeah.
could be around here underground and not know it.
Here's something real quick, and I know a lot of people liked what Victor had to say, and a lot of people didn't. But um, during the time of where they were supposed to be eradicating the Dogman, like he said, and they were calling him in, who's to say that they didn't figure it out, and now it's just taken its frustrations out in in that area for some reason.
Exactly. I'm sure. They can call so many back a day, and I'm not, doubting what Victor said. But at the same time, like you said, these things were highly intelligent. They could not communicate, as far as voice and vocal cords, but they could give hand signs and head gestures, and I'm sure that they were smart enough to figure out that they were getting killed off. For ever so many they call back, there's so many that's smart enough not to go, knowing it could be the end.
Yeah.
And that just turns them on every human. So any that comes across any human, just wipe them out just for being who we are. And they could have totally tried to eradicate our species. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something's going on. I really want to sit down and really look at my maps of the area and these attacks and missing people and kind of maybe triangulate. There's got to be some sort of explanation of why, the creatures, animals, whatever you want to call them, they don't, they have intelligence. Things that have intelligence that are free roaming don't do something unless there's reason to, like they don't hang out in, they want to be in the forest, they want to be hunting, for what they're supposed to be hunting for, not humans. And it's very strange indeed.
It's hard to really, trying to infiltrate what's going on here and accept it for what it is, because we really don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I know somewhere along the line, the government, principalities that be, and whatever alphabet government agency is behind it. You never know if they could be testing these things for war, just release them on society itself to test them out. Maybe a new program or a computer chip or an electric signal. You don't know what they would do. I mean, our government is probably the crookedest government in the United States. I mean, in the world. And the only difference is there's other countries around here with bad governments around the globe, but at least they don't claim to be something they're not. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand what Obama administration was doing, letting these things back out. I mean, if they'd have went through the criteria, to scan some to make sure that they were possibly could make it and wouldn't hurt a human, but they didn't think they just released them all because they couldn't feed them or what have you.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Me neither. Me neither at all I know is I hope that, you keep staying safe because for whatever reason they're lurking. And I know actually the other night when I talked to you, you were bringing in the dogs. First thing I said, "What's up, buddy?" Yeah, I'm just putting the gun away. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like there's something wrong with going out into your own yard and having to have a firearm to feel like you're safe in your own backyard. That's
It's one of them circumstances. I mean, you don't know. You
right.
really don't. Better to have it and not need it is need it and not have it. And with my experience that I've done had around here, my run-ins, everywhere I go, if there is not a sun or a light beam of day, I carry a firearm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all right, buddy. Just keep me in the loop. Be safe, and maybe sometime this weekend I can sit down, call you up, and I'll pull my maps up, and you and I can kind of just go over on the phone. Um, Try to triangulate something that's going on in your area. You know what I mean? Like that way I can ask you, hey, what's in this area? Just like that guy that got caught. They found him over by the hospital in that creek. Remember that?
Yeah, that was in Tazewell.
Yeah, yeah. And the
That's
paper
ridiculous.
only did one write up about that poor guy. So,
Oh yeah, they wanted to keep it quiet.
yeah, right on hospital premise. So,
Yeah, I know exactly where that is. When I was a kid, I went to school out there at Tazewell Middle School.
all right, buddy. It was good talking to you. Stay safe. Do me a favor. Don't hang up. I want to talk to you for a few minutes afterward. All right.
All right, Jeff.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right. Have a good night.
You as well. Stay safe, please.
Bye bye.
Tonight's final encounter. So I was in a very remote area in Montana, 2 hours from cell service, fishing on a mountain lake near the Idaho border. I was around 20 at the time and just decided to take a drive that day. I arrived at around 4 p.m., so I had a few hours to fish before it got dark. I pulled in right near the trailhead that goes around the lake in a gravel parking lot, which was empty as nobody was at the lake. This is a very beautiful lake surrounded by thick pine trees with an island in the center and plumb full of grayling, burbot, and brook trout. I parked the truck and walked around to the far side of the lake and fished for a couple hours. Every now and then, right before it started to get dark, I would hear some rocks sliding down the mountains behind me in the thick forest. I just assumed it was a mule deer, elk, or moose coming down to get a drink from the lake. I ignored it and kept telling myself, this will be the last cast before I head back. That never really works. Anyways, the sound kept getting closer and closer until I could hear whatever it was directly behind me, breaking sticks and slowly getting closer. At this point, I yelled in case it was a grizzly bear and started packing my stuff. As I began walking around the trail back to the truck, which was about a 20-minute walk, I could hear whatever it was following me. It was starting to get completely dark by this time. I was near my truck and this thing was right behind me in the trees. It wasn't making any sounds, just creeping through the trees. I would stop every once in a while to see what it was because it was so close, but there was nothing to be seen. Once I was able to spot my truck, I began to walk way faster and sprinted the last 100 yards or so. I threw my stuff into the back of my pickup and hopped in. By this time, it's pitch black outside. I was so relieved to get inside my truck. As I put the key in the ignition, something smacked my passenger side window. It just sounded like someone slapped it with their hand as hard as they could. I started the truck as fast as I could and got out of there in a hurry. And to this day, I think about that encounter every time I go into the woods. I have no idea what it was, but it was terrifying. I have lived in the mountains my entire life and never experienced anything like this before. When I got to my sister's house, I called my mom because I knew my grandfather had taken her to that lake before and told her about it. Little did I know, My grandmother's brother was found floating dead in that same lake. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I just want to let everyone know that I am completely wiped out. I've had a fever for the last couple of days. My body aches, and I just want to just crawl under my bed, not into my bed, under it, like a cat does when they're not doing so hot. But hopefully, in the next couple of days, I'll feel better and be my peppier self. But with that, I want to thank you all for your support. I truly appreciate it. And may the Great Spirit watch over us and may He guide us down that path that we call life. See ya!